This is Markin Out. Pro Wrestling Talk by Pro Wrestling fans. We marking out, y'all. Follow on Twitter. Pro Wrestling Talk by Pro Wrestling fans. We marking out, y'all. Marking Out. Pro Wrestling Talk by Pro Wrestling fans. We marking out, y'all. Brennan likes fisting. Pro Wrestling Talk by Pro Wrestling fans. We marking out, y'all. We're marking out. Pro Wrestling Talk by Pro Wrestling fans.
Welcome to Markin Out, Pro Wrestling Talk by Pro Wrestling fans. This is episode 712. Make sure you check us out on all social media platforms, such as on Facebook. Give us a like. Also on Twitter at Markin Out, on TikTok at Markin Out, on Instagram at MarkinOut11. Check me out, Dave, The Rave at David PTDPT, Brandon at BTTG161, Chris at Chris Sweendog on Twitter, and CM Sweeney85 on Instagram. And also buy a t-shirt at ProWrestlingTees.com/markingout and give us a listen. And a 5-star rating to go with that 5-star frog splash. Markinout.com, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, and Spotify. But that being said, Brandon, how are you?
I am doing awesome as always. How about yourself?
Fantastic. Yeah.
Wonderful.
How was your week? What did you do?
It's now fall. I've not done anything.
It is fall, and we have not done anything at all.
How about yourself? Probably nothing as well, right?
No, nothing at all.
Just pro wrestling. So we should move over to Monday Night Raw, which kicked off with Dominic Mysterio and Liv Morgan pulling up in a lowrider. That was, I guess, to push the sales of a Mattel figure coming out, or already out, I think.
Oh, I didn't know that part.
I believe so. But they walk into the building, and Bronson Reed and Braun Strowman, out of nowhere, go through a merch stand. Which, that alone was, like, completely unexpected. But then, what?
Uh-huh.
No, go on.
I was going to say, the thing that popped me was Dirty Dom reaching over and just slapping something off of the table randomly.
I didn't even notice that.
You didn't even notice? Like, they were walking by, then they go through the table, and then he turns, and then there's, I guess, a box just still sitting there on the table, and he just swipes it right off onto the floor.
Well, they made their way out to the ring. Liv Morgan spoke about taking everything from Rhea Ripley, and then Rhea Ripley showed up, and she's like, at Bad Blood, you're going to be in a shark cage. And then she headbutted Liv Morgan, and Dominic and Liv Morgan were furious with that. They yelled at Adam Pearce later on, but Adam Pearce couldn't care less.
Mm-mm.
So I think it's interesting that we'll get Dominic in a shark cage. A lot of people are thinking that Liv Morgan's going to have some help from Raquel Rodriguez.
We haven't seen her in a long time.
It would make sense, but we'll have to wait and see for Bad Blood.
I totally forgot that she was a thing.
Yeah. Later on, we saw Dragon Lee pick up the victory over Carlito. They ran into Ilya Dragunov before the match. And like last week, I fully expected Ilya Dragunov to be here. But JD McDonough got involved. And then they jumped the LWO. Rey Mysterio shows up and takes Dominic out. And then it wasn't much longer after that Dragon Lee won the match. I would have liked for this to have been longer. And I guess you really don't need Dragunov at that point if you have the LWO out there.
Yeah, I feel like it was like a forced combination.
I mean, not really.
No? I don't know.
After that, we saw Sami Zayn pick up the victory over Ludwig Kaiser. Unfortunately, I couldn't really get into this match. They did one of those 9-count spots again, and I'm sick and tired of that spot.
Yeah, the nine counts.
I really hate that. They did that on Grand Slam this week too. You do it. It's too often.
Mm-hmm.
But Ludwig Kaiser used the ropes. Sean ended up seeing that and made him break the pin. And then Ludwig Kaiser argued with Sean Bennett over that, which I guess distracted him enough for Sami Zayn to hit that exploder. And we saw Kaiser reverse the haluva kick, but eventually Sami Zayn did hit that haluva kick to pick up that victory.
Yeah. I hope that more happens with Kaiser too.
What, in what way?
I don't know. I feel like he has a lot of potential and everything, but I feel like we're only scraping the surface with Kaiser still.
Yeah, I don't think that's he's being halted or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But Gunther showed up afterwards in gear and said that he thinks that right then and there is a good time to step up to Sami Zayn and say no again. So we are pretty much a week out from Bad Blood. The match still isn't made. It's obviously going to be made on Monday Night Raw then.
Yeah.
But I don't know how I feel about this match now. Given how I wasn't into Sami Zayn and Kaiser, I don't know how I feel about Sami and Gunther for the title at Bad Blood.
I mean, I feel like Gunther is going to pick up the victory.
Well, obviously.
To me, there's no... I don't know. I feel like the Bad Blood isn't as intense with Gunther and Sami Zayn, even after that Bret Hart segment.
Yeah, because it's
still
just
not
Gunther
gripping me as
saying,
really Bad Blood.
It's just Gunther saying, nah, I'm good.
Yeah.
So it doesn't... Other matches on the card make sense, but...
Mm-hmm.
We were supposed to see Big Bronson Reed versus The Miz. However, that did not happen. We saw Karrion Kross speak to The Miz beforehand. Braun Strowman, though, ends up attacking Bronson Reed before the match. And The Miz yelled at him, and then Bronson Reed and Braun Strowman continued to fight. They took out security to get to each other. And later on, Adam Pearce set up a last monster standing match for Monday Night Raw next week.
Sign me up for that. I think that's going to be incredible.
In that same segment, we had Pete Dunne attack Sheamus with a cricket bat after Sheamus had spoken about him earlier.
You ever watch cricket?
What? No.
You ever watch
cricket? We went through this already. Remember the Eisenhower Park gimmick?
True.
Or was that that was cricket, right?
Yeah,
because I made the sound effects with my mouth. So I don't know where this is going to lead to with Miz. I don't know it's possible that he could get involved with Bronson Reed and Braun Strowman next week, but I don't necessarily think I'll see that happening. But will Karrion Kross factor into Miz further?
I don't know. It's hard to say what's going to happen with Kross and Miz, and Kross is just going from one person to the other.
And he's whispering in people's ears, so...
Yeah, but I need to see the payoff as to what's going to happen at some point soon.
That's why I question whether or not we'll see Miz in that match at all.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it also, let's not... Even with him and Woods.
Well, that, I guess, kind of paid off, though. Or it's still happening.
Yeah, it's still going through.
We saw Drew McIntyre come out, say that he's prepared for the match at Hell in a Cell. He's prepared for this match to be the end of CM Punk. He said that his family, like CM Punk's family, begged him not to do the Hell in a Cell match. And his wife begged him to get away from CM Punk because it's been causing him all this stress or whatever. And he said that at Bad Blood, he'll break CM Punk inside that Hell in a Cell.
I am all about that.
I do feel like...
The Drew McIntyre stuff with Punk has been just so entertaining for me.
But I do also, what else can they possibly do? They just need to have the match, next week on Raw. There's nothing left for them to do.
I agree. There's not really much to do. It's going to be a
pull-apart or something? We just need to see the match.
Yeah, I agree. It just has to be time for the matchup already. And after this, I feel like it has to be done. If not done, then there has to be at least a few months in between them meeting up again. But I feel like this has to be the culmination of it all.
Next week when we do predictions, it's gonna be very difficult to choose.
I know. Next up, you had Damage Control pick up the victory over the Unholy Union. Unholy Union on a losing streak, I believe. But
is it a losing streak?
I think so. I can't even remember
how
the last
many
time
losses do you need in order to consider it a losing streak?
I don't know. I mean, in Major League, 2 wins in a row is a winning streak.
Well, this is 2 losses in a row, so if you're going by the MLB standards,
yeah,
then I guess they're on a losing streak. But yeah. I think Io and Kairi Sane did a good job at hyping the crowd up. I just wish this match was more. Because last week's match with Io and Bianca Belair was like such a highlight of 2024. This match, on the other hand, was just fine. So, I just wish this was more. Earlier in the night, we saw New Day. I thought you were maybe going to do it based off of the backstage segment.
I didn't know.
But Xavier Woods actually, this pisses me off. Xavier Woods apologized for last week to Kofi Kingston. Kofi Kingston accepted the apology. As if it was actually Xavier Woods' fault. In what world? We already know, like, Kofi Kingston went and spoke to the LWO without speaking to his tag team partner. But Xavier Woods is the one that's sorry. So that's goofy to me. But Kofi, he brings out from the vault, he brings out some boxes of Bootios. He brings out a Bootio from WrestleMania. He brings up Francesca, all to hype Xavier Woods up. And Woods was like, this would be fine if we were on top. But we need to get serious. And then I think there was also a guy with the platter of pancakes that Kofi canceled last second. But Kofi Kingston said for the next few weeks, Xavier Woods can be the one calling the shots. And then American Made showed up to laugh at them. And Chad Gable calls them has-beens. And Xavier Woods challenged them to a match, which we go on to see the Creeds pick up the victory over New Day.
Not
American
good.
Made, by the way, best gear this week. That gear was fantastic.
It was cool gear, but when do you think we're going to get the culmination of everything with Woods and Kofi?
I don't know. Chad Gable attacked Xavier Woods behind the referee's back. Kofi tagged in, but the referee was distracted with everything, so Kofi couldn't be the one to get tagged in. Chad Gable gets involved again, and Xavier Woods brings him into the ring. Then he beats Chad Gable down, but Julius takes him out. He took Kofi Kingston out, and then the Creeds hit that last ride Brutus bomb to get that victory. But it's not over there, because Rey Mysterio then comes and apologizes to the New Day later on, and Xavier Woods was kind of mean about it and said that they only care about an apology like that if it comes with a title match. And then Rey Mysterio said that he didn't have time for that. He has Balor to focus on next week. And Xavier Woods kind of snaps. He's like, oh, you have time for him. He's a former champion. He's a former champion. He's a former champion. But you don't have time for me, because I'm not a former champion. And then Rey Mysterio is like, you know what? Finn Balor can wait. And he sets up a match next week on Monday Night Raw. Rey Mysterio going one-on-one with Xavier Woods. How's that going to turn out? I'm pretty sure Rey Mysterio's getting that victory.
I need Woods to go full-blown, like, just beat the crap out of him. If not that,
something like that.
After, it has to be a total beatdown.
Something has to happen there.
He has to just totally beat him down.
It seems likely.
I won't accept it any other way. I need a payoff with Xavier woods.
It seems
But-
likely.
Yeah. Main event of the evening, the Intercontinental Championship is on the line. Jey Uso is your new IC champ as he defeats Braun Breaker after maybe like 50 days, 50-something days.
60-something?
Yeah,
I
big,
think.
big title change on Monday Night Raw.
The fans were so behind Jey Uso, and they were very much so into this match. And towards the end of it, we saw Jey Uso reverse a spear outside with a super kick. Then he spears Braun Breaker through the barricade. He gets him back into the ring and hits another spear. And then finally hits that Uso splash to get the victory there. And I was shocked. I was not expecting that at all. When he threw Braun Breaker back into the ring after the barricade spot, I was like, oh, this is where Braun Breaker comes back and boom, spears the hell out of Jey Uso 1, 2, 3. I did not think we were going to see a new Intercontinental Champion on Monday Night Raw. I'm very happy that Jey Uso is Intercontinental Champion. I am somewhat torn on Braun Breaker's title reign being over already, but not at all do I think Braun Breaker, the internet, the goofy goofs on the internet, I almost cursed, saying, oh, Braun Breaker is buried.
What? How is he buried?
Because he lost his title. Like, get out of here. In
Yeah,
no
what's the
way,
bury?
no form, no shape or whatever is Braun Breaker buried.
Yeah, there's
In
no
fact-
Barry.
This almost kind of mimics his NXT championship run.
Yeah,
So
there's no Barry at all of Braun
it's
Breaker.
Jey Uso. Jey Uso has been in the company since what, 2010? Maybe even earlier than that. Very much so, well-deserved singles title for Jey Uso there.
Yeah, I don't think that there's any burying of Braun Breaker at all. He has his victories. He had good matches. He got over with the crowd and everything, even though he was he was a heel. And Jey Uso, he is so over right now. There is no good reason why he should not be carrying a championship. I am surprised that this is his first one. But apparently at the end, they were so cut on time that's why the referee left the ring too. At the very
Just
end.
let him celebrate?
No, because they were so short on time. They had like 90 seconds between that spear on the outside of the ring to the pinfall. So that's why the referee went to the outside of the ring, because me and you complained about it last week with one of the referees leaving the ring. Apparently with this one, he had to leave
But the
ring.
referee left the ring after a spear in the barricade.
Exactly.
That's a bit different than the other spot.
Well, but with this one, it was mostly because of the time thing, because right when he went into the crowd, they really cut really quickly. They had to do
Right.
everything fast.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I guess, that adds to even more so why I literally thought Braun Breaker was going to come back and hit that spear and win.
Mm-hmm.
But that's Monday Night Raw. Moving over to the final episode of NXT on the USA Network. Quite a run. I think it's 5 years or so.
Yeah, I believe so. But
We were at
final
NXT
episode-
shows back in the sci-fi era.
True. The final episode kicking off with Kalani Jordan picking up the victory over Ren Sinclair to retain the championship.
I liked Ren using moves that the No Quarter Catch crew would use, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But they end up yelling at Kalani Jordan outside the ring. Ren Sinclair dove out onto them by mistake. And she was able to get Ren Sinclair back in the ring, hit that kick, and a split-legged moonsault to pick up that victory. The wheel kick, I don't know, what would Rob Van Dam call it?
I don't know.
A round kick? I forget what. No, round kick would be forward.
Mm-hmm.
Heel kick, I'll say. I don't know.
We'll go heel kick.
After that, we saw Hank and Tank pick up the victory over the OC, which I feel like it's been going on too long.
Hank and Tank, I still can't really get behind.
I feel like they're not giving us reasons to get behind Hank and Tank. Back in the day, a few years ago or whatever, when Hank was like a security guard and they're like giving us a reason to care about him, Hank Walker. Now it's just like they're here, they're amped up, and they're feuding with the OC for the longest time. The last thing that we saw anything with them, I think, was 3 weeks ago. And it's not that this was a bad match, but I feel like I want this to be done. And given that the OC lost, I assume it's not done.
I mean, I don't understand. Well, it has to be done because what? You're going to end with the OC defeating Hank and Tank?
I have no idea.
I feel like this has to be done because if you do it again, I feel like no matter what, the outcome has to be Hank and Tank over the OC to put over Hank and Tank, and then OC doesn't really need it. Yeah,
I see it's hard to speculate what's next in this match. And it's not even like the match was bad. I'm over the pairing, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
After that, we saw Oro Mensah pick up the victory over Lexis King. Lexis King earlier in the night was like really not himself, I guess. He was nice. And he's like, made the best man win. And then in the match, he turns back to Lexis King. He puts his feet on the ropes to try to get that leverage to pick up the victory. The referee sees that, stops the count, and then when I guess Lexis was distracted with the referee, Oro Mensah did the same exact move and actually won with his feet on the rope. So anything you can do, I can do better, I guess. Maybe, perhaps.
I guess so.
After that, we saw Ridge Holland pick up the victory over Riley Osborne. Riley opened this segment up by diving out onto Ridge. But when the match was actually started, Riley, I think, controlled a good chunk of this. He even put Ridge Holland through the barricade. I feel like these barricade spots should stop.
Especially if it was done the night before.
You literally just did it on Monday Night Raw.
Yeah.
I understand them doing it in this as well, given everything that Ridge did with the barricade.
Mm-hmm.
But Ridge was able to reverse Riley at one point. He hit his DDT and pick up that victory. But part of me thought Thea Hale was about to join Ridge Holland and turn on Riley, I guess. Mm-hmm. Especially, I mean, afterwards, Ridge Holland continued that attack. Riley fought back, but still, I mean, Ridge Holland is Ridge Holland. It's not like we're going to see Thea Hale versus Ridge Holland.
No.
So, after that, this was a crazy, crazy segment. We were supposed to have a sit-down interview, separate rooms to keep them apart, obviously. MSK. Wes Lee, Zachary Wentz. During the commercial break, though, they go back and forth with one another. A lot of F-bombs here. Uncharacteristic for NXT. I was very surprised to see that. But Wes Lee ends up bringing up Gigi Dolan. And Wentz ran off to fight with Wes Lee. And he finally gets there and they brawled. And that was the end of that. It hypes up this next episode of NXT perfectly.
Yeah, there's a lot going into this episode of NXT on CW.
Yeah.
Next up, you had Rosemary and Wendy Chu pick up the victory over Carmen Petrovich and Brinley Reese. I'm very happy to see Rosemary getting this much exposure.
I'm just not happy with the outcome of this.
Why?
I'm fine with them winning, but we saw Ashanti the Adonis show up during this match. Earlier, we saw him backstage talking to the women's locker room, and he spoke to Carmen Petrovich, and I feel like she was like brushing him off or whatever, but here, he goes to talk to a woman in the crowd. She ends up distracted, leading to the end of that match, and I don't know, it kind of seems like we're seeing her turn heel. Maybe. Like, maybe she's going to want to, like, actually go with Ashanti. It seemed like she was jealous. I feel like Carmen Petrovic is better than that.
Okay.
So, but earlier in the night, we had the Grayson Waller effect, where they made fun of Fraxium and then brought them out. And they said they would be great on SmackDown as individual competitors, which just, like, angers them more. And Nathan Fraser turns the tables on them and brings up, like, oh, which one of you are going to be turning on the other? And Axiom brought up becoming, not on purpose, sort of the Grim Reapers of NXT. They beat the Wolf Dogs. They separated. They beat MSK. Obviously, we know what happened with them. Chase U broke up. All after facing Axiom and Nathan Fraser. And I think that hypes up their match perfectly. I liked Nathan questioning the name of the show and putting, like, those seeds of doubt into Austin Theory's head. Like, why is it just Grayson Waller's name? Why is it just his image? And Grayson Waller basically just saying, like, oh, I had this before we were together. And then it turned into Grayson Waller hitting a cheap shot and then a beatdown. And later on, we had Cedric Alexander and Javon Evans run into A-Town Down Under, or vice versa. And it sets up a tag team match where we saw A-Town Down Under in the main event pick up a victory over Javon Evans and Cedric Alexander. Kind of wasn't expecting that to be the outcome.
I feel like A-Town Down Under was the obvious outcome to me, but just because with everything taking place on the main roster.
I don't know. The way that they got to the outcome of this match I thought was nice, though. But Theory at one point threw a kick from Evans into Grayson Waller, which also I think plays perfectly into them potentially splitting up. But that didn't stop A-Town Down Under. And Fraxium randomly shows up in this match. Axiom tries to stop Nathan Fraser. And Grayson Waller sent him into Fraser. And then Axiom caused Nathan Fraser to shake the ropes and take out Javon Evans by mistake. So that led to Javon and Cedric Alexander to lose. So it makes sense that they lost. Next week is going to be very, I think, shocking. I'm hoping.
I think it's definitely going to be shocking. I mean,
I'm
you look at
almost
what's been
certain next
happening,
week
and then,
is next week. I think next week is A-Town Down Under versus Fraxium for the titles, right? I think that's not taking St. Louis, right?
I think it's Chicago.
I think it has to be next week, and I think Motor City Machine Guns have to show up.
I would definitely enjoy seeing that. 100%. I mean, what happens if it's the other tag team coming in?
There's no other tag team coming in.
Penta?
They're signed to AEW still, so...
I thought that they signed with WWE.
No.
All right.
Not yet, at least. Not legally. But it'll be like a Chris Jericho WCW situation.
For all you know, or...
Nah, that's what they say. You can't sign to another company when you're in AEW. So
I mean, maybe they're not with AEW anymore.
I think they're still with AEW. But throughout the night, they had a press conference backstage. You had Kalani Jordan take questions, Obafemi, Fatal Influence, Trick Williams, Ethan Page took questions. I'm almost certain one of the people that asked Ethan Page a question was Cora Jade. Not 100% sure on that, but they didn't name her as Cora Jade. But you had Roxanne Perez and Julia do their press part in the ring to close the show. And Julia said that she thinks it's time for Roxanne to pass the torch to her. Roxanne was like, what people don't realize is that I was a Julia fan before anybody else probably even saw you here. I've seen your matches in Japan. And Roxanne was like, you're not beating me. And Julia basically says that everything in the United States is new to her. But what's not new is that she's still the most feared. And then a random person interrupts with a question, and Byron's like, oh, I don't know where that came from, but please, we'll get to you. And then it happens to be Stephanie Vaquer interrupting, basically saying, what are you going to do having to wait with me on the other side of that championship match? So, regardless of who wins, we're either seeing Stephanie Vaquer versus Roxanne Perez, or most likely Stephanie Vaquer versus Julia.
I do like something that I did see. I saw how the very first NXT on USA, the final clip, the final view was Ciampa and Gargano looking at each other, staring at each other, and then it cut. And then with this NXT, the very last clip was the both of them looking at each other, staring at each other in the ring, with Stephanie in the background looking onto them.
I will say, if it is Julia winning the championship, and we are seeing Stephanie Vaquer versus Julia, I hope that it ends better than their previous match.
Mm-hmm.
Because it wasn't bad, but it was like an out of nowhere finish. Something seemed off in that match. So I'm hoping that it's different, I guess. But that was NXT. Moving over to SmackDown. It opened up with Randy Orton, who said that he can count the amount of people in the business that he can trust on one hand. And Cody Rhodes is one of those people, and he doesn't understand why Cody agreed to team up with Roman Reigns at Bad Blood. He needs an explanation, so he called Cody Rhodes out. And Cody's answer was, would you rather be a fool or would you rather be a coward? And then he said that he trusts Roman's word, and he's doing this because it's time for the bloodline to be killed. And Randy Orton said that it's not a problem unless Cody makes it one. And then Kevin Owens came out, and before he could say anything, the bloodline interrupted. And Solo Sikoa said that every single time that he's tried to take out the bloodline with Randy Orton and Kevin Owens, they failed. And that's why he's going with Roman Reigns this time. Just planting those seeds of like, well, kind of true. But Kevin Owens laid out a challenge, which I thought was a 3-on-3 challenge. But Cody Rhodes steps in. He goes, there's 3 of us here. It could be 3-on-3. And Kevin Owens like, no. RKO versus Solo Sikoa and Jacob Fatu. That match gets set up for the main event, so I'll put a pin in that right now. The first match on SmackDown saw Bayley pick up the victory over Naomi to become #1 contender. Right before that segment, Nia Jax was quite mean. She yelled at Tiffany Stratton about this match happening because of what happened last week. She even grabbed her throat and threatened her, and she said that if it ends bad for her, it'll end really bad for Tiffany Stratton. As far as the match goes, I thought the match was really good. I liked Bayley being kind of conflicted on taking, I don't want to say cheap shots, but shots that she would normally take, I guess, against Naomi. And Naomi, that set her off kind of. She pushed Bayley. They went back and forth. She basically told Bayley to bring it. And Naomi controlled a nice chunk of this match. I liked the Bayley to belly spots. That led to an elbow drop from Bayley. That was the finish. I was not expecting that to be the end. But it was. Bayley moves on to Bad Blood to face Nia Jax. You had Carmelo Hayes pick up the victory over Andrade. They mentioned that super awkward handshake fist bump that happened last week between LA Knight and Andrade. And Andrade spoke to LA Knight about how a real man shakes hands to show respect. And because of what happened last week, he lost his respect. This match, though, I thought was great. I like that scoop power slam from Andrade through the ropes onto the apron. The first 48 that Carmelo Hayes hit was very nice. I liked him trying to do the knees to the corner that Andrade would normally do, which Andrade got out of the way of. He went on to actually connect with his knees. The superplex countered with a cutter from Carmelo Hayes was fantastic. But LA Knight showed up, and that ultimately distracted Andrade. And Carmelo Hayes rolled him up to get that victory. And then Andrade was pissed off at LA Knight, and he was yelling at him. And LA Knight was like, nah, I'm out here for Carmelo Hayes. And he offers his hand. And instead of shaking it, Andrade leaves. Obviously, why would he shake your hand? You cost him his match this week, and you didn't shake his hand last week. They aired a video for AJ Styles returning next week on SmackDown. Super hot topic of the IWC this week was people begging AJ Styles to go to AEW. I saw one person even saying, "Oh, please come home," as if that even makes sense. But AJ Styles is going to be on SmackDown next week, so I'm excited to see that. We saw Mia Yim pick up the victory over Piper Niven. Chelsea Green came out with a trash can to hype up the match, or not really hype up, but sell their match between the two of them for their dumpster match. And she caused a few distractions. I expected Mia Yim to walk out of this as the winner, but it was pretty much Chelsea's fault that Piper lost. And in the main event of SmackDown, we saw the Bloodline pick up the victory over RKO. I thought this was a good match. I liked when Randy Orton dropped Jacob Fatu on the commentary table. He popped back up and he tore apart the table. And then Randy Orton hit him with 3 more backdrops onto the table. Solo Sikoa tried to hit Randy Orton. Orton ends up hitting the backdrop on him as well. Bloodline, somehow they took control during the commercial break. That hip attack spot was probably my favorite spot from this match, where Solo hits his running hip attack to the corner. Then he tags in Fatu. Fatu sends Solo into the corner for another hip attack, and then does a hip attack of his own. I thought that was a great spot. But the Bloodline, I think they did a good job at keeping Kevin Owens away from Randy Orton. Once Orton got into the ring, he was able to take over. Kevin Owens at one point also had a hot tag spot where he did that outside the ring spot where I spoke about it. I don't know if it was last week or 2 weeks ago. I thought that was a nice alternative hot tag spot. But Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa end up coming out, distracting Kevin Owens. Cody Rhodes, who Kevin Owens didn't want out there, but Randy Orton said that if they show up, I would like you out there. Cody shows up to fight with them. And Tama Tonga gets dropped by an RKO. Randy eats a super kick from Jacob Fatu. Kevin Owens then hits a stunner on Solo Sikoa, goes for the pin, but he couldn't get that victory there because Jacob Fatu threw Cody Rhodes into the ring and it knocks down the referee. So the ref was distracted technically because of Cody Rhodes. But Solo basically steals the victory after that. Kevin Owens pushed Cody Rhodes and got into his face after the match. And Orton broke it up to try and cool things down, and it ends with Kevin Owens actually hugging Cody, but it seems like it's going to happen. And maybe they're going to throw us for the biggest swerve ever, and it's going to be Randy Orton that does that turn. I think we have to see Randy Orton versus Cody Rhodes at some point. So we'll see what happens with that. That was SmackDown. I'm going to take a quick little break, and I'll be right back here on Markin Out.
This is Kevin Steen. And you're listening to Markin Out.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Markin Out, episode 712. Moving to AEW Rampage from last week, it kicked off with Mark Briscoe picking up the victory over Brian Keith. I thought this was a good match for Brian Keith to have, but I need him to have more matches, not only like this, but he desperately needs victories against people that are bigger names than who he's already defeated in AEW. Excalibur in this match I thought was so goofy, pretty much spoiling the aftermath when he was like, he said something like, oh, this was a one-on-one and nobody from the Learning Tree was there to be found. Immediately after he said that, Chris Jericho showed up. So Chris Jericho would have had to have literally passed right by Excalibur for him to have said that and be in the ring at that time when literally finishes saying that. Jericho attacks him. Big Bill was out there. Orange Cassidy was out there. Kyle O'Reilly. And then that sets up Collision, which I'll talk about next week. I thought it was going to be on Dynamite this week. It was for Collision. We saw Wheeler Yuta pick up the victory over the Butcher. I think this made the Butcher look terrible. I 100% completely understand Wheeler Yuta winning and controlling the match the way that he did, but the Butcher has fallen so far in AEW. We had Hikaru Shida pick up the victory over Harley Cameron. For the story that they're telling with Hikaru Shida, I think this match was just way too long. But Saraya got involved, Jamie Hayter got involved, and then Saraya challenged Jamie Hayter to a Saraya's Rules match, which I also thought was going to be on Dynamite. But it turns out this match was for Collision, so I'll speak about that on the next week's episode. We had Roderick Strong and Black Taurus pick up the victory over Joe Keys and Marcus Mathers in a match where Black Taurus finally gets another victory, and it's meaningless. Under 2 minutes, and to make matters worse, the referee couldn't care less that the illegal partners were in the ring at the same time. This match sucked. This is not, when I say I want more wins from Black Taurus, I want meaningful victories. This was garbage. Main event saw Nick Wayne pick up the victory over Leo Rush, Kip Sabian, and Rocky Romero. I liked Nick Wayne hitting that cutter on Leo Rush when Leo Rush went for that frog splash. But Kip Sabian hits a KOD on Rocky Romero. Nick Wayne steals that victory. Over on Collision, we had Dustin Rhodes and Sammy Guevara pick up the victory over the Kingdom in a bunkhouse brawl match to retain the championships. I don't get why this was randomly a bunkhouse brawl. At least the tag team championships were defended on television, even though at this point I really don't care about the Ring of Honor champions on television. But Dustin hits a Shattered Dreams with his foot wrapped in barbed wire. Then Sammy Guevara hit a swanton off the ladder to get that victory. This was a very entertaining match. It just, why was this on TV? I did not understand why it was happening. You had Hologram and the Conglomeration pick up the victory of the Premier Athletes. Another loss for the Premier Athletes. To the point that it feels like Groundhog Day watching these matches. That sucks. You had Mariah May pick up the victory over Lady Frost. I have said this so many times, but whenever Lady Frost is wrestling, she always ends up looking better than her opponent. Like every single time. And that's not a knock to Mariah May or any of her opponents, but she's just really good in the ring. And for me, this did nothing for Mariah May. it certainly didn't do anything to build up a match against Yuka Sakazaki. After that, you had Darby Allin beat Evil Uno. Earlier on the episode, Darby Allin yelled at Evil Uno and said that he wants the old Evil Uno for their match. And I feel like this shouldn't have been Evil Uno. I feel like going into Grand Slam, Darby Allin would have faced somebody like Claudio or Pac. So I didn't quite understand why this was a match. Alex Reynolds got involved. Darby Allin took him out. Obviously, Darby Allin was getting that victory, though. You had Serena Deeb pick up the victory over Queen Aminata. Serena Deeb won their last singles match. But this match was still very entertaining. I get Queen Aminata losing this since she won that tag match the other week. But I would have liked for her to be the one that picked up the victory here. You had Grizzled Young Veterans, Roderick Strong, Roosh, and Black Taurus pick up the victory over FTR, Hook, and the Outrunners. Just like Rampage, another meaningless victory for Black Taurus. And this was, to me, this was an absolute mess of a match. Everybody in this deserves better. And then Collision closes with Nigel McGuinness. I understand Bryan Danielson is the champion. Nigel McGuinness is a commentator. He returned at Wembley and has done nothing since but cry and complain. And Tony Schiavone randomly steps up to Nigel McGuinness in this, like he's a pro wrestler. But ultimately, it's Nigel just acting like a baby. Boo-hoo, I want my match with Bryan Danielson. And obviously, he's getting that match with Bryan Danielson. Fast forward to AEW Grand Slam. Nigel opens the show. Bryan's music hit. He doesn't show up, so Nigel makes the referee start a 10 count. And then the final countdown starts, and Bryan Danielson shows up. Even though Bryan Danielson was too injured to be facing Darby Allin for the championship, that led to Darby Allin putting his title shot on the line against Jon Moxley. Bryan Danielson shows up and wrestles Nigel McGuinness and wins. I still think this match was an absolute mistake. Bryan Danielson, to me, should have had tunnel vision for Jon Moxley, who literally almost kills him. For Claudio, who strikes first. And Pac. Anything other than those three names, to me, makes zero sense. And this match, obviously a lot of people are putting it over. This match to me was beyond slow. Very boring at times. And for me, this match should have just stayed in 2009. Nothing that they're going to do in such a short amount of time is going to equate to what they've had in the past. So I don't know what people are saying when they're like, this was the greatest match ever. This to me was long, and not long in that sense, just very, very, very slow. Christian showed up afterwards, took his sweet time trying to sign the contract, and Kip Sabian sneaks up from behind, steals the pen from Christian, and then Christian runs to the back. He runs into Claudio and Pac, who are just backstage. And then Christian has to go a different way. But what were they doing backstage? I guess technically, no, not even. It doesn't make sense. What were they doing backstage? I was going to say protecting Jon Moxley's title shot, maybe. But I don't understand what the point of that was. After that, you had Hook pick up the victory over Roderick Strong to retain the FTW Championship. Hook, at times, he was taking on all three members of the Kingdom. And I was hoping to see a spot with like Action Bronson making the save for Hook from the Kingdom. But a moment where Hook needed help literally never came up. And even more surprising, Roderick Strong offered a handshake afterwards. I thought that was going to be some like heel tactics. And he hugged Hook. That was very unexpected. I think that was probably the most unexpected thing of the night. And then Tony Schiavone interviewed Hook afterwards, and Hook said that all good things must come to an end, and he officially retired the FTW Championship. 100% the right move. Will Hook still stay in AEW? I don't know. What's next for Hook? We don't know. I would really like to see Hook go to NXT, though. Yeah, the Young Bucks and just the Young Bucks pick up the victory over Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher to retain the tag team championships. This was another match from the show that just, to me, shouldn't have happened. There were a lot of flashy moves. The match overall, it was fine, but the referee really didn't do much in this match. Don Callis ends up giving Kyle Fletcher a screwdriver to use. He distracts the referee, and then Will Ospreay, I guess he's a babyface, like an idiot, takes the screwdriver from Kyle Fletcher and hands it to the referee. And then the Young Bucks are able to use the tag team championships behind the referee's back. The referee literally turns away after he counts 2. Who was he looking at to be like, oh, it was 2? And then whoever gets clocked with the tag team title, and that leads to the end of the match. You had Prince Nana come out to give an update on Swerve, basically saying Swerve's not cleared. And then MVP interrupted and hyped Swerve up and yelled about Swerve losing and said that he sees it more, not on a failure on Swerve, but more so on Prince Nana. More so on his management. And he gave Prince Nana his business card, and he said when he's ready to talk business, have Swerve contact me. Maybe that means we're going to see a new Hurt Business in AEW or something. I'm not sure if that's what AEW needs, but maybe it will lead to Bobby Lashley versus Swerve at Wrestle Dream. I don't know. I think it's interesting to have MVP there, but in what capacity? I don't know. You had Mariah May pick up the victory over Yuka Sakazaki to retain that championship. Like I said before, I literally thought we were going to have Jamie Hayter and Saraya, so when Yuka's music hit, I was very confused. But Yuka starts this off by attacking Mariah May before the bell. I liked that once they were in the actual match, the slaps that they were doing back and forth. I thought that was a nice spot. I just wish this match was longer. Mariah May, after the match, went to hit Yuka with that championship. Willow Nightingale ran down or showed up to step up to Mariah May. And then Mina Shirakawa shows up. And Mariah May attacks Willow with that title and then runs up the ramp to celebrate with Mina Shirakawa. Mina looks like, well, I don't mean for that to happen. Which I could swear we saw something similar happen with Mina Shirakawa before. I'm not 100% sure. But I have to assume this is going to lead to Toni Storm coming back and not having Mina Shirakawa and Mariah May on the same page. You had the main event of AEW Grand Slam. Jon Moxley picked up the victory over Darby Allin to get Darby Allin's title shot that he won. So for me, this was a lose-lose match because, like I said earlier, this match shouldn't have even taken place. Bryan Danielson was injured, couldn't compete against Darby. Darby goes up against Jon Moxley. Then Bryan Danielson is not too injured to face Darby, but instead he's facing Nigel McGuinness. Darby, pretty early on in this match, ends up bleeding. And then they brawled outside a bunch. Marina Shafir, behind the referee's back, attacks Darby Allin with the distraction from Jon Moxley. And I think if that happens during a match, especially with the referee being distracted, I think that makes Mox lose credibility. You had Darby Allin rip the turnbuckle pad off right in front of the referee. Referee couldn't care less. He points, that's it. Doesn't try. He doesn't even attempt to take that turnbuckle pad from outside the ring and put it back on. And then outside of that, Moxley controlled most of this match and picks up that victory. That's a whatever win to me. I don't care about seeing Jon Moxley versus Bryan Danielson for that title. They could have gotten there outside of that with that Darby Allin match taking place right here. Grand Slam. Why couldn't that Nigel match take place elsewhere? And then Bryan Danielson ran out, starts choking Jon Moxley with a tie. Marina Shafir gets a headlock on Bryan Danielson, starts choking him out. And then Claudio jumps in, Pac jumps in, Private Party jumps in. They get shut down. Commander runs out after the Blackpool Combat Club saved Jon Moxley from Bryan before Bryan could hit that knee. Alex Abrahantes, that sets up Collision. But to have those people stand there backing Bryan instead of Wheeler Yuta is mind-blowing. And then Bryan said that it's on between him and Jon Moxley at WrestleDream. Again, whatever. Everything that was delayed with the match with Nigel McGuinness, why should I care about Jon Moxley versus Bryan Danielson when Bryan Danielson clearly cared more about Nigel McGuinness than getting back at Moxley, Claudio, and Pac? So that's Grand Slam. Hey, Brandon, got any shout outs?
Heyo, Kermit the Frog here, and you're listening to Brandon Shoutouts, yay!
The Queen of Villains gets the first shout out. It's a brand new show out on Netflix, which I saw the trailer for months ago. And I've just been waiting for this to come out on Netflix because I thought it looked good. And the original trailer that I saw was in Japanese. So I was prepared to read subtitles. Not one of the things I wanted to do at all. But it looked that good. Luckily, they have it dubbed. We have Nikki Bella and Alexa Bliss actually dubbing over lines for the people playing Jackie Sato and Maki Ueda. And the show, though, it stars Yuri-Ann Retriever as Dump Matsumoto. And it focuses on the upbringing of Dump Matsumoto, how she got started with All Japan Women's Pro Wrestling, and so many more things. I think most of what takes place in the show actually happened, but like people are saying the match that she had, like her debut match against Monster Ripper, apparently never actually happened.
Huh.
And I went to go look up who's Monster Ripper. It must be somebody famous or whatever. Turns out Monster Ripper was Bertha Faye. So that surprised me.
Wow.
The show also involves Chigusa Nagayo's life as well, and her forming the Crush Gals with Lioness Asuka, as all of them started training together. They're portrayed by Erika Kurata and Ayami Goriki, and I think they do a fantastic job. Like, all three of them, their facials are fantastic. I can only go off of that because it's all dubbed over in English. But it also eventually covers the introduction of Bull Nakano, and her teaming with Dump Matsumoto. So that was really cool to see Bull in this show. But Chigusa actually worked on the show as a consultant and helped train the actresses. And I think this show was so brilliantly done. And if you're a fan of pro wrestling and you like watching dramatic shows, even though it's like super violent at times, it's just, I think it's so good. And I think you'll probably enjoy this show. So I really do hope people watch this show on Netflix. And I wish that it was longer. I could have watched so many more episodes of this.
For me, I have no connection to it. So...
Neither did I. I knew the name of, I knew the Crush Gals by name of the Crush Gals. I didn't know that Chigusa was in it. And I knew Chigusa because we promoted her back in the day, in the early days of Markin Out, when she came over to the States.
Yeah,
and obviously we know Bull, but not because of this version of her.
Yeah.
As soon as I like was watching this show, I'm like, I want to know more about all of these people. I thought it was so good. It's not even like rated on Rotten Tomatoes. In what world? How does that make sense? It's a brand new show on Netflix.
Maybe not as many people are watching it.
I don't know. I think it's actually number 1 in Japan though. So at least like there's that.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wish more people here were watching that on Netflix here. So also Alexa Bliss sings in it.
Wow.
Because Beauty Pair used to make their entrance to the ring and sing. So I thought that was really cool. My next shout out goes to Agatha All Along. It's now out on Disney Plus. It's been something that everyone has waited for basically 3 years to get. It's a spin-off of WandaVision from Disney Plus, but I think you're supposed to be able to watch this without knowing that show, although I really don't see why you would watch this if you didn't see WandaVision. But it stars Kathryn Hahn. Deborah Jo Rupp is also on it. They both reprise their roles from the series. It adds Joe Locke, Aubrey Plaza, Sashir Zameda, Alian, Patti LuPone is on it, and they all star in it as witches. And the series follows Kathryn Hahn's character as she tries to regain her powers after everything that Wanda, I guess, took from her. And I think it's the perfect season for a show like this. It's about to be Halloween. The show, I think, wraps up right before, I think the night before Halloween. So,
I mean, that's definitely the time where I feel like this TV show should be wrapping up.
Yeah. Although I wish
specials.
that every episode was out already because I would 100% watch it all.
Yeah.
The last shout out goes to Child Star, which is out on Hulu. Demi Lovato directed this documentary about experiences being a child star. And she interviewed Drew Barrymore, Kenan Thompson, Allison Stone, Jojo Siwa, Raven Simone, and Christina Ricci as well. And I thought it was very well done, but I feel like it could have been longer. Like, I feel like each celebrity could have done their own episode. And some of the things that are in this we've heard before, but it's still like shocking to hear. Like the stuff with Drew Barrymore and everything with what she went through with addiction. It's just sad at such a young age.
Mm-hmm.
But I would 100% recommend this if you grew up with any of the people that I named. We grew up with most of them. I think with Allison Stone, I was still in middle school when she was getting famous. Jojo Siwa is probably the only one that we didn't grow up with here, but
yeah.
I thought this was a well done documentary. It's on Hulu, like I said. It's on Disney Plus too if you have the package, I guess. So check that out. Those are my shout outs. Now it's time for our
Mark Out Moment of the Week.
That is right, our Mark Out Moment of the Week. We didn't mention it last week. We completely forgot to. But on Impact, we got to see Santino Marella and Ariana Grace interact together.
Yes, this was definitely a mark out moment just to see such a heartwarming segment between two people from two different companies.
And then also Jeff Hardy donned a Fiend face paint, which I thought was really cool. I thought that was nice to see.
Yeah.
As far as the WWE Vault, they're at it again. They uploaded a dark match between Minoru Tanaka and Christopher Daniels, current interim EVP over at AEW. Tanaka, if you're unfamiliar with, he's been at all the big companies in Japan, New Japan, All Japan, Wrestle One, currently wrestles for Noah. But I just thought this was really cool to see, especially such a young, I think it was from 1998, with Christopher Daniels, the Fallen Angel. So check that out. Also, the WWE Vault uploaded, I think it's like over 40 minutes worth of footage of Dump Matsumoto and the Crush Gals to go along with the release of the Queen of Villains. So I thought that was really cool. I got to watch those matches. So watch Queen of Villains, watch those matches on WWE Vault. You got any other mark out moments?
Yeah, I marked out for the promotions of the CW. They had Trick on the morning show this morning with on the CW, the news. So they spoke about NXT incoming and everything like that. But also just still marking out over everything that's taking place with Braun Strowman and Bronson Reed, I think. And also Jey Uso, champ. How can you not mark over that?
How about Shane O'Mac?
Oh, what with him?
Taking pictures with some fans at the airport.
Yeah, the EVPs.
Matt Jackson looks like he doesn't even want to be there.
Yeah, he looks tired.
I want to know if Shane McMahon knows that he portrayed his brother-in-law, though. That's the real question I want to know. Not if Shane McMahon is coming to AEW. I want to know if Shane realizes that Matt Jackson played Triple H on Monday Night Raw.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess those are the mark out moments of the week. That is episode 712. Thank you so much for listening. You can follow us on Twitter at Markin Out, BTTG161 on all platforms, Chris Sweendog, CM Sweeney 85, David PTDPT, Facebook.com/MarkinOut. YouTube and Instagram are MarkinOut11. ProWrestlingTees.com/MarkinOut to support us, to purchase some merch. Marking Out on TikTok. Go over there, give some likes, some stream time on our TikToks. You can listen to our show. I already said YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, iHeartRadio, markinout.com. And we wish you the
best of luck in your future endeavors.
Have a fantastic week.